organically. So if that search term is getting searched 100,000 times, how many of those 100,000 people are seeing my brand? And so the higher you are in the search results, the higher that impression share is going to be. Then we're going to have, what is your click share? Well, I'm seeing the same amount of impressions. That must mean my click-through rate is dropping. So then my diagnosis would be, okay, how can I improve my title, my product imagery to help increase my click-through rates there? And we would see click-through rate as an exact metric when we get into the data set later, so you can track that metric specifically. This is a search term I'm outperforming on, must be very relevant to my product. My product is well optimized for that. So let's go put more dollars behind our ads on that search term. Let's move it into higher priority in our titles, our bullets to increase our organic rank and try to get some more visibility on that search term. Whether that's from reviews, my bullets, my pricing, doesn't align with what the industry is expecting. So maybe I need to run a promo. Maybe I need to work this type of term in my bullets more, right? So now I can create an audience of those. Like Laura was saying, I could go market them with this product from a sponsored display perspective. I could bid boost for them. What is search query performance data? I think just want to give an overview for those of you who might not be aware. So Amazon's generated search query performance data for sellers specifically for quite a while. So if you're a Vendor Central account and you don't have any Seller Central account, unfortunately, this data set's not available at this time for you. Should Amazon ever make that data set available, we would certainly ingest that data as well. But at this point, this data is only for sellers. What this data set's going to allow us to do is across several different points of customer interaction on a search query level, we'll be able to see what is our brand's interaction rate across different levels of engagement. So to break that down, maybe I'm a headphone brand and one of my top search terms is wireless earbuds. So I'll be able to go into the search query performance data and see, okay, for the search term wireless earbuds, what is its search query rank, which is going to mean of all the most searched terms on Amazon, how much is it getting searched from a search volume perspective? What is my percentage as a brand of the impressions on that search term organically? So if that search term is getting searched 100,000 times, how many of those 100,000 people are seeing my brand? And so the higher you are in the search results, the higher that impression share is going to be. Then we're going to have, what is your click share, right? So we'll say of all of those people who are seeing impressions and then end up clicking on an ad, of every click that comes from that search term, what percentage of those clicks are you capturing? What percentage of add to carts are you capturing? So again, not just percentage based off of impressions, but of everybody who searches the term wireless earbuds and from that term, before searching anything else, adds a product to cart, what percentage of those cart ads is your brand capturing? And then finally, what is your brand's purchase percentage out of that? And we are able to see this broken down not only on a search term level, but down to an ASIN level as well. So we can see it from a holistic perspective for your brand and compare that to top competitors. We can also see it on an ASIN level. So if you have one specific ASIN that you're really trying to push on, maybe noise canceling earbuds because that's its main feature, right? You can see how, if I'm making SEO efforts, ad efforts on that search term, how is that affecting my click share, my purchase share specifically for that keyword? So this is a great way to be able to generate organic insights. It's available in Amazon itself via brand analytics, allowing you to measure across these different levels from the impression to the conversion, and now available via API data. So it's Intentwise in the last 2 months or so has been able to start ingesting this data past the Seller Central report as well. So we got an idea of what the data search query performance offers is. So now what's the power that's going to drive for us? So think of search query performance as a way for us to reverse engineer the success that you're seeing in search. For an example, if we want to know why has our conversion dropped, like if we're seeing less purchases, here we can kind of work up from the top. Okay, first, what are our top search terms? And on those top search terms, are we starting to see less impressions or less impression share, right? We'll be able to see both impression count per search term and impression share per search term. So I can see, okay, if again, in my wireless earbuds example, my top search terms are noise canceling earbuds, comfort earbuds, and budget-friendly earbuds, right? Those are my top 3 search terms. And I notice on all 3 of them that my share of impressions drop and my total impressions drop. Okay, well, that's something where maybe I need to focus on how can I improve my organic rank specifically for those keywords. In the inverse, maybe I only see impressions drop, but my impression share stayed flat. Well, now that might mean those search terms are just getting less search volume. So I need to focus on another set or a wider set of search terms that are potentially seeing increased volume, which I would also be able to find in that data set. But let's say, for an example, impressions stay flat, right? So I'm seeing the same amount of impressions, the same amount of impression share, but my clicks are starting to fall off, right? Well, I'm seeing the same amount of impressions. That must mean my click-through rate is dropping. So then my diagnosis would be, okay, how can I improve my title, my product imagery to help increase my click-through rates there? And we would see click-through rate as an exact metric when we get into the data set later. So you can track that metric specifically. And then finally, I might see, hey, click rate is staying the same, my click-through rate staying the same. What does my purchase look like? And there's actually, we'll see add to cart data as another level in there. A lot of times those go hand in hand, right? But you might start to see that they're getting a lot more cart abandoners. That's definitely something we could see in that. But let's just assume that those things are staying evenly and we get to the purchase rate, right? And we start to see, okay, well, search volume's the same, impressions are this, impression shares the same, click shares the same, but purchase shares where I'm falling off. Well, if that's where you're falling, right? Well, now I have a conversion rate issue. So maybe that's pricing that I need to look at. Maybe I lost badging. Maybe I had a discount that ran out, right? Those are the things that we can start to look at because we know people are still ending up on our page from these top search terms, but they're not purchasing. Maybe we need to rework our messaging for those top search terms, right? On our product pages, several different things we can look at. So it allows us to start at the top of the funnel, work our way down, and find issues where we might have content issues, we might have conversion issues from pricing, availability, reviews, etc. So thinking through some different use cases here, right? So this is an example of top performing queries by conversion. So I looked at our data set and I sorted by the total number of purchases we're getting on a search term level. This is just a sample data set. So some of the data would probably not look like your data would actually see, right? We're probably not going to see a 0% impression share on a bunch of terms that we're getting 250,000 purchases on. But as an example, so I could see here, all right, well, if this was truly my data set, right, I'm getting 35,000 purchases, but I'm only capturing 0.02% of the purchase share. But when I do show up, I'm getting a 30% click share, right? And that's only 0.02% of the clicks. So I'm clicking and I only have 0.01% of the impressions. So when someone does see my product, because I'm only at 0.01%, they're clicking at a higher rate than the category average because my click rate is higher than my impression rate. And they're purchasing at the same rate as category average from a click, right? So this would be a search term, right? I saw this, I saw Wiser FPV drone. Well, this is a search term where I probably want to put more emphasis from my ads, from my SEO strategy, right, to get a higher impression share because I'm outperforming the category from a click share, which is leading me to outperform the category from an impression share relative to from a purchase share relative to my impression share. Performing on category average would be your click share and your purchase share being exactly in line with what that impression share is, right? If this impression share was 1%, my click share was 1%, and my purchase share was 1%, I'm performing exactly at category average because I'm not over or underperforming in any of those buckets. If my impression share is 1%, my click share was 0.8%, and my purchase share was 0.9%, right? Well, then I'm underperforming from a click-through rate perspective, but I'm overperforming from a conversion rate perspective. So those are the things that we would need to look at from that rate. So in this example, right, again, I might find, hey, Wiser FPV drones. This is a search term I'm outperforming on. Must be very relevant to my product. My product is well optimized for that. So let's go put more dollars behind our ads on that search term. Let's move it into higher priority in our titles, our bullets to increase our organic rank and try to get some more visibility on that search term. So that's one use case we could look at. Another use case we could look at is the opposite of that. So where are we seeing the funnel drop off? Where are we underperforming, right? So if I look at here's some lower volume search terms, but still relevant for us, right? So I'm looking at Wiser drone for search and rescue V2. All right, so my impression share on this, and this is getting covered up, but it's 27%. My click share is 32%. So I'm actually doing very, very well from a click-through rate perspective, right? My 34% click-through rate is vastly outperforming the category because I'm 0.05% higher in my click share than my impression share. So click-through rate, we're well optimized. Our imagery is great for that. However, our purchase share and add to cart share are much lower than the category average. Now, purchase share, right? This being at 0 again, example data set. So let's imagine our cart ad share is our purchase share in this example, right? So if our purchase share was 0.19%, well, not only am I underperforming the category average, but I'm even strongly outperforming my click share, right? To be performing on average, my add to cart share would also need to be 0.32%. So in this example, I'm seeing, know my product from a visual perspective aligns well with the search term, but my content, whether that's from reviews, my bullets, my pricing, doesn't align with what the industry is expecting, right? So maybe I need to run a promo. Maybe I need to work this type of term in my bullets more, right? If search and rescue is a term that I'm getting good impressions on, maybe I need to work in some secondary imagery for search and rescue or work that into my bullets, right? So those are some type of insights we could bring out of this type of data set. Or lower variant, Wiser AeroPilot 2.5A tracker. Again, very long-term search term, but honestly, when we start to see these performance changes on longer tail search terms, as long as we have enough relevant data from it to generate insights, right? I mean, if we were looking at 100 search query volume, we probably just don't have enough data to truly get insights out of it. But if you're looking at a couple thousand, right? And again, in this example data set, it's not what it is, but let's imagine that this is 3,000 as a search query volume, right? So I can start to get relevant data out of this. Again, impression share is 0.43%. All right. So we're getting that percentage of the impressions. And our click-through rate is very strong. So our click-through rate is actually stronger than it was on the last term. So we're leading to a 0.81% click share. So we're almost double the category average from a click-through rate perspective. So that means like our main imagery, our title, our price, our main pricing that someone sees before they click into our product is very in line with what the consumer is expecting. So this is a search term that we can continue to expose on. However, my add to cart share, and again, let's imagine this is our purchase share, is 0.25%. So not only am I underperforming the category average, but again, for me to be online with the category average, I'd actually need to be at this 0.81% from a category average conversion rate perspective. So again, maybe I need to look at, okay, how can I work in AeroPilot? I probably would have more awareness of what is that specifically the customers are looking for when they're searching for that search term. And then I need to work that into my lifestyle imagery. I need to work that into my bullets. Same story as what we saw for the last one, right? Because this is a search term that customers associate my product with strongly, and I have opportunity to grow on from a conversion rate perspective. As we move down the funnel, where are people following up? And again, we looked at the inverse on the last one. As you go down the funnel, where are you gaining more people, right? If we saw the inverse and we saw that, hey, let's look at this one, right? The inverse Wizzy Parrot Drone V2, right? I got a decent search volume. My impression share is 0.08%. My click share is 0.17%. Add to cart share is 0.21%. And purchase share is 0.48%. So you consistently step up in the funnel, showing that this is a product that like on this search term, your product has great content, great visibility for people shopping in your category. Associate your product with the search term, because as you go through, you start outperforming yourself in the last bucket, meaning you're outperforming the category. So this is a search term that, hey, I'm only capturing 0.08% of the impressions. There's 2,300 impressions to have. Let's go put more dollars behind it. Awesome. And then just looking at what is our share trend over time, right? So in these last examples, I might find that I'm going to go put more dollars behind Wizzy Parrot Drone V2 and search terms that are similar to that. So maybe I go do that over the next 3 to 4 weeks. And then I'm going to see, okay, what effect did that have? So on a total brand level or on a search term level, an ASIN level, right, whatever aggregate level I want to look at the data on, I can see how does this share trend over time, right? And that's where we're going to start to see the most value, because once we identify those opportunities and we make the changes, that's the beauty of this data set, is we can then see what is the effect of those changes, right? We're not just limited to just top line sales change. We can see fully break down where are we improving within a customer's funnel. So I might see, like in this example, that, okay, from March 2nd to March 16th, look how my purchase share goes, right? So I clearly did something within the conversion stage of the funnel. So on my product page, in a lifestyle image or something like that, I clearly did something that improved my purchase share over that time. I also saw my click share improve and my impression share improve in this last week, right? So I'm probably put more dollars behind my ads, or maybe Amazon just deemed I'm more relevant for the term because it started seeing a better purchase rate and users are clicking into my image at a better rate. So I'm doing strong there as well. Oh, we have a question from the chat. Are we able to pull in fields for average cost per click and average selling price in order to be able to estimate what your investment and sales gain might be? It's a great question. Search query performance data doesn't pull that in natively. And we'll look at the Intentwise platform. That's not something that we're pulling in right now into that data set, but I certainly think that's great feedback and something that is certainly, because we and Intentwise and combine those further data sets is something we could work in so that we're able to compare that. I agree that would be something that's valuable. Competition might be a little bit tougher. Amazon's not going to necessarily say, hey, this brand saw this bit of much of a drop in impression share, but for looking at like what is your ad share from share of voice, those type of things, those are things that I know we're thinking about working into that data set in the near future as well. Awesome. So all that data is great, right? But what's the catch on that? First, this is something that we have to manually pull via brand analytics in the past, right? So this data set's actually been available for several years, but it was something that every week, if I wanted to have week over week data, I need to go download from the console, put it in another file, and pivot table it to compare it, right? You could see past weeks, but you can't see them compared to each other. I had to pull one week compared to the other week. It got pretty messy. It doesn't include anything like ad metrics, right? So when having something via the API or working with Intentwise, we can start to think about ways where we can work in things like ad cost, share of voice metrics, cost per click, those types of things, right? Which are things that we're still working into that integration. This is definitely still a new API, but things that'll be available in the future that'll add some additional benefit there. And then we don't really have a way to go in and easily tie it back to our campaign strategy, right? So if I'm working in a tool like Intentwise, right, I could see that, okay, I have an opportunity on the search term, and then I can easily click over to my campaigns view and add that search term to a campaign, right? So it's an easy transition to get from one place to the other without switching to a completely different platform like we would be doing natively in Amazon's console. So that's where Intentwise can help here. So we're helping automate the ingestion of these reports, right? So you don't have to go manually download everything. Every week, something's going to be brought into the console for you to view. We're looking at helping you view things across time, across ASINs, and across groups of queries, groups of ASINs, and then breaking things down by branded versus non-branded terms. Laura had a question in the chat. Is this date time based? For example, could we go back and look at our share from Prime Day last year? Oh, that's a great question, guys. So this data is going to be broken down weekly. So we'll be able to view every week's data. So I couldn't necessarily say, hey, only for the 2 days of Prime Day, what was my data? But I could say for the week of Prime Day, what was the data set that was available there. Awesome. So let's jump through this within Intentwise itself. So this is what Intentwise search query performance looks like. So this will just give us some more practical ways where we can walk through the data set together here. All right. So let's just see at a top line, right? So like I mentioned before, this data is brought in weekly. So natively, Intentwise is going to bring in the past couple of weeks of data, right? So we're only going to bring in the past like 2 to 3 weeks. But if we wanted to backfill this, that's something that we could discuss on a one-off basis. But once I set this up, we'll continue to pull future weeks. If you look at this in a year, you'll be able to see year-over-year data natively and all of that. So maybe I wanted to look at, let's look at this data holistically so I can get trended data. I can break down by brand versus non-brand. I can define product categories when I'm uploading the list of search terms I'm going to track. And so I can define that here. And then I can filter by the products that I'm looking at. So the way this platform is going to work from Intentwise's side is we'll be able to upload a list of up to 50 ASINs for free. You would upload those 50 ASINs, and then we'll track all the search terms that are coming back against that. And so that would be the product categories and the products and stuff that you're seeing here would be those 50 list of 50 that you define. So across the board, then I can see what's the total search query volume that's available across all of the search terms that I'm showing up on. So if I captured 100% of the search query volume across all of the search terms I was looking at, how much search volume would I be looking at? What's my share of impressions? What's my share of clicks? What's my share of add to cart? And what's my share of purchase? So if I was looking at this data holistically, if I was looking at my brand overall, I would say in this example, again, very demo-based data, but I have lots more room to show up from an impression perspective, right? If I have ad dollars I can unlock, there's lots of things I could do from an organic perspective, right? My rankings maybe not the strongest. My click share, however, is doing very well. So my main image looks good. My pricing is competitive. I have good badging, right? I'm doing well from the click share perspective because because of the rate, it's outperforming my impression share. And then my add to cart and purchase share are not doing well. They're vastly underperforming my click share. So maybe I need to go in and look at my products and look at my lifestyle imaging, my bullets, et cetera, like we talked about before. And then we can compare this to the market. So I can say, okay, of the market's 200 or 669 million impressions, I'm getting 242,000 of them. Of the 7.9 million clicks, I'm getting 15,000 of them. And all the way broken down to 625,000 purchases to 214 purchases. I can see this week over week, right? So how did my click share change week over week? I went from 0.17 to 0.2 to 0.23, right? So I can see that clearly sometime around this week, I made a change, whether that was to my main images or my titles or my pricing, right? Then that's improved my click share here. If I wanted to dive deeper into that, right, I could select a specific product and see what products am I seeing that increase on, right? Maybe I'd select, this group of products here and see, do I see a similar increase, right? So here we'd actually see, if we look at click share, we'd actually see a decrease, right? So maybe that wouldn't be the one that we're seeing the increase on there. In this example, cart share is greater than impression share. So you're getting a share of category sales, even though the cart share is lower than the click share. If your cart share was greater, or your purchase share, even if either of those are greater than your impression share or click share. Okay, no, I'm sorry. I understand the question now. So the question here is, our cart share is higher than our impression share. So that would mean that we are getting more add to carts per impression than the category average. But we're getting 0.2% of the clicks. So this is just saying that we show up 0.4% of the time. But of all of the clicks that happen on our search terms, we're getting 0.2% of them. So we're getting a much higher click-through rate than the whole category, right? Because this is only going to take into account clicks across the board. And so that's just saying that because we're having that big of an increase in clicks, we have that many more people on our product pages So we're getting a higher add to cart share than our impression share because we're outperforming in a click perspective, right? We're actually underperforming in a cart ad, right? If we had an average add to cart rate with the category, this would remain flat. So it'd be 0.2 and 0.2. But because that's below, yes, it's still outperforming our impression share, but that's more because of how many clicks we're driving versus add to carts performing well. Also, and then we can break further down into see things like how are things on a search query level, how are things on a product level, right? So I could see, okay, what if I wanted to see a specific search term, maybe like I'm working with a brand, why drones. I want to see how does the term cheap Wiser drone doing for me? Okay, so it's got a search query volume 1600. My impression share is 0.33%. A click share is 0.18%, right? I can see that breaking down. So in this example, I'm not getting a good click-through rate, but I'm getting a good purchase rate, right? So my conversion is strong for this term. People are associating with this term, but I need to work on my main image, maybe, right, to increase that click-through rate. So I can sort this data by different filters, right? So if I wanted to see where am I getting the most impressions or the most clicks, right? We can add different measures, and I can see what's my total click count. And then once that loads through, I can see total click count here, and I can sort that in descending order. So which search terms am I getting the most clicks on? And this just makes it easy to manipulate the data so that I can see, like those use cases we looked at earlier, where do I have the highest leverage opportunity to make those changes, right? If I was looking at where are my most click terms, right, where do I have a decent purchase rate? Here we go, 0.28%. But my impression share, again, not probably something you'd see at 0.00%. But if this is truly what my data showed me, right, my click shares weak, but my purchase share is amazing. Right. So this is the term I need to focus more in on because I'm getting good for conversion rate on it. So those are the type of things that this data set would allow us to see. Further, right, if I identify an opportunity here, so maybe I see, okay, let's find that term again. Or here's another one. So Wiser Drones discounts, a term that's working well for us. So let's go filter down our data set to show that. Wiser Drones. All right. So I'm also going to filter down this bottom table. So I can see, again, impressions goes from 0.29% up to a purchase rate of 0.45%, click share of 0.29%. So our click-through rate is on category average, but our conversion rate is much higher than category average, right? That's what the data set is telling us. So now I can see what product is that coming from, right? So this product here seems to be the one that's getting the highest share of impressions across the category. However, right, this product is the one that actually has the highest purchase share, although at 0.02%, it's probably, it's not getting many impressions, so that data might not be conclusive. But I would see here, okay, this product, right, is the one that's outperforming category from a purchase rate perspective, right? It's got 0.79% of the impressions and 1% of the purchases. So this is a term, and I'm not seeing good click share. So this is a product where maybe I need to go look at my hero image, work that to be better fit for the discount terms, right? Because it's doing well for people looking for discounts. And then I'm going to put some more ad dollars behind it because it's performing well on that term, right? So those are the type of insights that we could take out of this type of data set as we start to collect these different pieces of data. All right. And then now that I have that filter on, I can see, how does that go week over week and on all the things associated with that. Just one more example we might look at, right? I think if we wanted to add in things like this, what might be helpful to further see this, if I took out total click count and total purchase count, and let's look at just like click-through rate and kind of see how that breaks things down, right? So if I wanted to just look at where am I doing strong from a click-through rate perspective, maybe I would, we could sort by search query volume and see, okay, so like my average is around this 20 to 30% rate. Where am I have places where I'm overperforming? Here's one, 42% click-through rate here. So this is outperforming even me as a product, right? So maybe I want to look at more of this Terra pilot term, right? This could be something I would take out of that. Autopilot drone, right? 47%, and good search volume, 52% for Wiser drone for filmmaking V2, right? Like, so these type of things, I'm seeing good volume on them, and I'm outperforming even myself from a click-through rate perspective. So not only could compare to the category, right? But I can also find the search terms where I'm outperforming myself because maybe across the board, my images just aren't good. And so I'm underperforming from a click-through rate perspective across the board, or the opposite. My images are great across the board. And so I'm always outperforming from a click-through rate perspective. And so that doesn't necessarily speak to the term itself. It just speaks more to my imagery. So if I find examples here where, okay, your click-through rate is actually outperforming yourself as an average, well, now I know, okay, this is more about how my imagery, my title, my product speaks to that specific search term than me just having really good content as a whole. Right? So that's another lever that we could look at here to specifically look at things as it relates to search terms to your brand. So use case idea that we had in the chat, pull these terms where you outperform category and build an AMC audience of users that search terms, but do not visit your product page and remarket to that audience with your ASIN. or use that audience to bid boost and sponsored ads. That's a great use case, right? If we want to think about bringing this out of making image changes, making content changes, and using these audiences, that definitely unlocks a whole new bucket of things. So what Laura was saying in the chat is we could create a bucket of everybody who searched these search terms but is not clicked on our product page. If you're that might run into some difficulties if you're not using shopping insights, but we could at least say if they saw an ad from us but didn't click it on one of these search terms, because we know, right, if they're looking at these search terms, these product feature based search terms, right, they have a higher propensity for my brand because most shoppers associate my brand with that search term because I'm outperforming from a purchase rate perspective. So now I can create an audience of those, and like Laura was saying, I could go market them with this product from a sponsored display perspective. I could bid boost for them, right? I could do all of that. You could also look at the inverse, right? If I'm saying, hey, these terms I do really poorly on, right? Maybe I'm a headphone brand again. It's the example I always like going to. And I do really poorly on the term budget headphones. And maybe that I should understand that, right? Maybe my price is $300. Right? I'm not going to do good for the terms budget earbuds. And so while I may not be targeting those terms directly, those customers are probably also searching for things like noise canceling earbuds in general, right? So if someone's searching budget earbuds, maybe I don't want to expose to those customers when they're searching other search terms or when I'm targeting in market audiences, things like that. So I could create an audience and then use that as a negative audience. So anybody who's searching for budget earbuds, I'm going to negate them in any DSP campaigns I'm doing, right? So those type of levers are things that we can use to take this data set to the next level for sure. How we can get it into that audience data set. So in summary there, couple key points. Search query performance is going to provide us a gold mine of search funnel data. You saw how much data was listed there, and that was just an example, right? You're going to have a lot of data to work with here. But the difficulty is how do we sort through that? And that's where Intentwise hopes to help with different filtering options, different week over week options, right? That's where we hope we come alongside you guys and help make that data easier to consume so you can implement some of the use cases we worked through today. It's really great from thinking about what's my keyword strategy, whether that's ad or organic. How do we find content optimization? What's my brand health? What's my pricing health? I hope I made it clear how we can find different things on each of those levers, whether it's impressions, my keyword strategy, clicks, my content strategy, or sales, my pricing, my brand health, my reviews, those types of things. And on its own, right, it can be limiting again because of how overwhelming and in depth the data set can be. But with Intentwise, we're hoping that can become easier for you guys, easier to scale, use across the board, especially if you're an agency working with a lot of brands. The data can become even more involving if you're looking at it for a multitude of brands. So hoping that we can help make that easier for you guys to consume as well. Another question that we got, and moving into the final round of questions here. So if you guys have questions, please feel free to throw those in the chat, and we'll work through those before we log off today. But do you think that Amazon will ever make search query performance available for first-party sellers? That's a great question. I hope so, right? It doesn't really make sense to me that they don't, right? Especially when they want to encourage more people to move to first party. But first party does have other data sets that have similarities, just not quite this. So it wouldn't surprise me to see that, but I haven't heard anything from Amazon's side that's something that they're actively planning on releasing, unfortunately. But definitely something that I could see them doing at some point. I think would make a lot of sense for them because they want you guys to have these types of data sets because they want the most relevant products showing on each on each search term, right? They want you to focus on the search terms that you're going to sell at the highest rates for. That means they make more money too. While you guys are thinking of any other final questions, throw in the chat. I also wanted to just call out, if you wanted to hear more from Intentwise, we really encourage you guys to join our community. We recently launched our community. We have a couple hundred people now joined in there, and it's a great place to get new insights into what's happening with Amazon, what's happening with Amazon ads, ask any questions you might have, and get insight from other people in the community, whether you're a brand or an agency. We'll be throwing a link in the chat here, but really would encourage you guys to take a look at the community. It's free to join, so we'd love to have you guys in there. Intentwise also does webinars and newsletters regularly, so feel free to visit us at intentwise.com and visit our resources page. You can see all the upcoming webinars we have, all the past webinars we've done, and I really hope that you guys can get some insightful content out of there as well. Awesome. Well, if you do have anything else, if you have any issues with search query performance data, have anything else you'd like to see with search query performance data, would love to hear from you guys. So please feel free to reach out to me. You can find me on LinkedIn, just my name, Kenton Snyder, or you can email me. It's just kenton@intentwise.com. Should be super easy. So feel free to reach out with any questions, ideas, thoughts that you might have as it relates to search query performance or anything else. I know we have a lot stuff coming up with Prime Day, all those other things. If you have any questions or thoughts, please feel free to reach out. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you all taking the time today. I hope you all have a great rest of your week and a great weekend. and looking forward to seeing you all next time. Thanks, everyone.